Here with more is the author of Do What You Said You Would Do, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan. He was supposed to be on the January 6th committee, but he's not any longer, along with New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. So, Jim Jordan, you and Jim Banks, you were going to be on this committee, but they took you off this assignment to replace you with, let's see, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, both that hate Donald Trump, and that will come to the predetermined conclusion that Nancy Pelosi wants.
No, I think you're right. This is all political, and a great monologue, Sean. And you're right. You've condemned the violence all the time. You've been consistent last summer and on January 6th. Elise has done the same thing. Republicans have done the same thing. But because Democrats haven't, as you pointed out, because last summer they actually normalized anarchy and said it was okay for rioters and looters to attack the police. They defunded the police. They tore down businesses. And then Democrats raised money to bail them out of jail. Because of all that, they're afraid to ask the fundamental question, which is, why wasn't there a proper security posture that day? My hunch is because when you do all that to the police and take those positions they did last summer, it's kind of hard then to say, oh, we need more protection on January 6th for us politicians. It's kind of hard to do that. And so we didn't have the proper security posture that day. That is the fundamental question. And that can only be answered by the Speaker's office. And I think that's why Jim Banks and myself are not on the committee, because we've been consistent and they haven't. They couldn't have the right security position on that important day.
Hey, Jim, we discovered video that this was pre-planned. How do we know it was pre-planned? Because people were placing items in certain locations. Now we have that evidence. We now know that the police chief, the Capitol Police Chief, requested and was denied on 6 separate occasions the reinforcements and the guard that he was asking for. And we know from our mutual friend Mark Meadows that the White House had suggested that they have reinforcements, and the guard brought up even before the event happened.
Well, Sean, we know, according to press reports, it looks like the Speaker's office before January 6th vetoed having the National Guard here. Then also, according to press reports, it looks like on January 6th, she hesitated before she called up the National Guard. Now, why was that? That's a fundamental question we need answered. I don't think they're going to do it because Chairman Thompson said that's the only question that's not on the table. Everything else is on the table, he said, but that's the one question that most needs to be answered that I don't think they're going to address.
Let me ask you, Congresswoman Stefanik, I noticed Liz Cheney took a shot at you today, and clearly now she has sided with people that were, you know, the ones that were always saying that Bush and Cheney lied and people died, and calling her own father a murderer and a torturer, and suggesting he was corrupt with his previous work with Halliburton. You said that the American people deserve to know the truth, that Nancy Pelosi bears responsibility. There's a specific reason, isn't there, that you make that statement? Can you explain it to people?
Absolutely. Nancy Pelosi bears responsibility because we know that as early as December, there was information and intelligence that there were potential security threats and that the Capitol was not going to be secure on January 6th. Nancy Pelosi refused to act. We also know that on January 6th, Nancy Pelosi was passed a note by the Sergeant at Arms, her political appointee, asking for her permission to bring in the National Guard. She hesitated. Jim is exactly right that these important questions deserve to be answered. The American people deserve to know what the Speaker's office knew and when and why the Capitol wasn't secure. And when it comes to Liz Cheney, she is a Pelosi Republican, a Pelosi pawn at this point. She does not represent the Republican conference or Republican voters or the American people. Republicans are focused on the facts. We are not focused on protecting the Speaker of the House, who is a lame duck speaker. We want truth, accountability, and we want to make sure that the U.S. Capitol is secure as the people's house and that the violence on January 6th never happens again.
And where is the commission, by the way, on all the rioting that took place last summer? Where's that commission? I'd like to see one. Have you guys heard of any movement to get that commission started? I haven't.
Well, you're exactly right, Sean. We need a broad scope commission that's focused on political violence. What the Pelosi sham commission is focused on is only January 6th and trying to shame over 70 million Americans who were standing up for constitutional and election integrity issues. We need to look at the political violence that occurred all this past year. We need to look at the targeting of Steve Scalise and Republicans on the baseball field. We need to look at the tragic loss of a U.S. Capitol police officer on Good Friday. Nancy Pelosi Pelosi and the Democrats do not want to investigate that. They want to make this political and partisan.
Last word, Jim Jordan.
No, I can't say it any better than Elise did. But the bottom line is, Sean, what else are they going to talk about? They can't talk about the 12 murders, as you brought up in your monologue in Chicago last week. They can't talk about the crisis on the border, and they certainly can't talk about inflation. So they're going to continue to focus on this and attack President Trump. That's just who the Democrats are.